Okay, before we start, can I just caveat this whole video just by saying I still think Virgil van Dijk is one of the best centre-backs in Europe. I still think he's one of those players that's capable of, I think, taking Liverpool to another championship. The issue is we would have to be competing in the next couple of years as far as I'm concerned. So enjoy the video, but here what we are talking about is transitioning from a previous era to a new era. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that. How, when, and who first essentially needs to transition away from Liverpool? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you guys down there. Let's chat. Hey, could we talk Virgil van Dijk for a second? Because his comments after the Euros, they didn't shock me, but I think they mean something quite significant to this Liverpool side and the era that we're about to enter with Slot, but also with the rest of the staff just above him who, are going to manage day-to-day football operations, Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes, etc., etc. I think Liverpool are about to enter a time where some fairly big historic figures in the team, i.e. Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, possibly even players like Robbo and Alisson, are going to move on from this side, are going to have to move on at some point. Hopefully, Alisson, not for quite some time. Hopefully, Virgil van Dijk for a couple of seasons, no. If we could, obviously, and it meant that we got good investment anyway, we would keep Mo Salah until the end of his career because Mo Salah's a much-loved player at Liverpool. And obviously, we'd love to see someone like Robertson do well. But I also think there has to be the opposite of that acknowledged as well. In that, not only are those players towards the end of the life cycle, even if some of them are still very much playing at the peak of their powers or entering a new era where they are the smart player rather than the quickest, rather than the strongest, all those kind of things. I think that is still a really important player to have in the team. But in the Arne Slot era, I think we are going to need to change a couple of profiles in the side. And the assumption that old combinations of players, for instance, the two centre-backs and, say, Trent on one side and Robertson on the other, and Alisson behind that, is going to work in the same way as it would in the Klopp era, even though obviously there's centre-backs and full-backs and a goalkeeper there. I think he's a bit of a... Well, I don't know if anyone's even making that case, but obviously we know that, and we know that therefore we're going to have to move on. But I also think there is a problem in that when Virgil van Dijk says, I'm going to have to manage my minutes, we don't know if he's alluding to the fact that he played a lot of minutes over the last 3 seasons. This guy's played a lot of football and recovered from some fairly serious injuries that I think people never thought he'd really recover from. And I think he's talking about the mental and physical toll that it's taken on his body. But it is giving Liverpool a bit of a conundrum because similar to the way that and I don't want to talk about Harry Kane in another video, but the way that we felt about Harry Kane with England was, wow, that's an all-time goal scorer. That is a guy who has done great things. And suddenly this feeling that he was undroppable or this feeling that he did things that somehow some other player couldn't do if given the opportunity actually tripped England up. And I don't want to make that same mistake. And obviously, I can also reference, in previous seasons, the old midfield of Liverpool under Klopp. I don't know if we were hanging on for Bellingham in that season or whatever it was, what the plan was, whether we needed to wait for a certain financial thing to tick over or whatever, but we ended up with an aging Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho, and young midfielders who weren't quite ready to enter a more full-time fold, even if they were very eager to do so, even if their skill set now suits that. The reality is at the time that they didn't have the mental or physical capacity to play a full season for Liverpool. The same, I'm worried, could happen with Liverpool and Virgil van Dijk. Club legends and moving them on is a notoriously brutal process for any team. Manchester United struggle with it for a number of players. Of course, what Sir Alex Ferguson managed to do is integrate a lot of those players wider into the squad. And actually, there were a lot of people who spent a long time at the club who I think offered something in the dressing room, which is the case I kind of want to make for someone like Virgil van Dijk. Virgil has been an incredible, silent, but also practical leader in the time at Liverpool and has since become obviously captain of the side. And while we're talking about profiles, and there are some amazing profiles as centre-back that Liverpool are being linked with, not only from the Bundesliga, not only from Liga NOS, if that's still what it's called, not only from the Premier League, those profiles are fantastic. But let's be real, if we are to replace a leader, we need someone else to step forward. Now, obviously, someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold is a great player. Obviously, like someone like Mo Salah, obviously, even Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, a number of young leaders in the side, and maybe people like Stefan Bajcetic will step up, people like Dominik Szoboszlai, we're obviously he was signed because he's a captain of his international team. He was signed because he is a young, charismatic guy. Konate, Alisson is very much one of those silent leaders. We don't know what Conor Bradley is going to evolve into, what a number of those young guys who stepped forward under Klopp did as well in that Carabao Cup final. What we do know is that Liverpool don't want to just transition, or I think we know that Liverpool don't just want to transition Virgil van Dijk out the door and lose a captain and a big figurehead at the club at the same time as bringing in a new manager, especially when that manager comes from the same country as he does. They obviously speak a similar language, probably have similar cultural references, and also Virgil van Dijk is an incredible historic figure at Liverpool. He has had some of the best seasons that a centre-back has ever had in the Premier League, alongside some of the great names. I'm not going to talk about whether he's better or not. The point is that Virgil van Dijk deserves the respect, but he doesn't deserve to just have people say, hey, who's going to be the left-sided player? At the moment, Liverpool only really profile as right-sided centre-back players, right-footed centre-back players that will play on the left. It's a confusing way to put it. And what we need, potentially, in an Arne Slot system is players with a left foot that will play the ball slightly differently. In the past, obviously, this was made up from the fact that Van Dijk had such exceptional ball-playing ability, but you could argue that there were times where you thought, okay, well, what would a left-footed player do here? It's not that I ever thought I wanted to replace Van Dijk, but you get my point. And I think a lot of people are going to be curious, especially when they start to see people practically playing in this Arne Slot side, when we see a move away from the Klopp shape, and it's not that the intensity will go, it's not that pressing is going to be worse, all those kind of things. It's more that what suits the shape and the needs of this side right now, we don't know yet, so we can't really comment. What we know is that, Virgil van Dijk himself has said it. He's also spoken about the fact that, he knows, he's conscious of that. So I get the feeling there is a PR thing, there is something to be managed here. Not only is he speaking about it, but there's other people around the club speaking about it as well. There's a lot of media outlets. I feel like it's maybe been briefed a little bit, or there's been kind of very conscious conversation from the club to be had. But I think we need to be careful with this, because he is an all-time Liverpool legend. He's probably in the all-time Liverpool team. That's a hard one to say because there are a lot of very good centre-backs at Liverpool, but he is a true great of the modern era. He's definitely in the modern era Liverpool side, and there are some great centre-backs in the modern era as well. But also, I think we can't just bring in... I mean, here's the thing, right? What we have at the moment is an A and a B defender partnership. We have Virgil van Dijk on one side, the A, and the B being Konate, Gomez, Matip, or whoever else you want to put in there. At one point, you could put Nat Phillips or someone like that, or whoever else in there. And that isn't the only combination of defenders. I think what Klopp did very well was manage that as a back line. Konate was the more aggressive defender. Van Dijk was the more reserved, aerial duel-winning centre-back who held the line, who made sure everyone's in the right place, who showed sense of leadership. But Van Dijk, more recently, I think has, especially during the Euros, there are a couple of times where he sought out position, he showed lapses of confidence, maybe lapses of judgment, probably because he's played a lot of games, probably because he is relatively exhausted at this point in his career. And I think he does need to manage his game time if he says he does. And someone who's conscious of that, someone who, knows he's coming towards the end of his career, who knows he's coming towards the end of what is good for any side, and wants to not be remembered as the guy who hung on a little bit too long, not the guy who sat there and, just kind of festered at a club before the club said, okay, we don't want you anymore, and doesn't want to have to be, I don't know whether Jordan Henderson was pushed out or not, but doesn't want to have to be moved on in an aggressive way in the way that it sometimes felt like Henderson was moved on. We know we want to see that respect. Maybe he wants to go back to Holland or the Netherlands. Maybe he wants to go and test his skills in Serie A or in Bundesliga or just somewhere else in general. Maybe he wants to go to MLS and have a great life in Miami with someone like Messi, or, in New York at the Red Bulls, or, NYCFC, or in LA, I can't see why that wouldn't be appealing to a player, especially, someone who would be such a celebrity in the States. Anyway, point is, we profile a number of really great players. Mark Gray, I suppose Inacio is there as well. I've seen like 4 or 5 different players. Pacho. I think we're probably looking at a couple of other young centre-backs. There's a centre-back from Red Bull at the moment I think we're looking at that I would be quite interested to see as a profile for Liverpool, even though, again, probably plays on the wrong side. But again, maybe we're looking to replace... I think there is an inkling that we might also be just looking to replace 2 of our centre-backs this summer, or at least line up some other people. Obviously, we still have Joel Quansah in there. whether he could step into the fold as a replacement for Virgil van Dijk, and whether Van Dijk could kind of coach him through that, and whether that's a very public, conscious thing. I think the more public and conscious we can be of this, Van Dijk is being a great statesman, Van Dijk is coaching people through, Van Dijk is passing on knowledge, Van Dijk is doing all the right things for the club. That's always going to stand you in good stead with the Liverpool fans. The effort that you show, the care for the club, the selflessness, all those things are going to be good. And the more that I think we can perpetuate that as a club, because I think a lot of people forget how we feel as supporters towards players and how we can help with, solidifying legends, with making them feel like they're doing their service in the right way, obviously still getting paid an incredible wage for it. All of that is very important. So let me know in the comments below, what do you feel about Virgil van Dijk and him moving on or kind of transitioning into this final stage of his Liverpool career? Because I think we should generally acknowledge this probably is the final contract he would sign at Liverpool, in the same way as that's probably the same for Mo Salah, that's probably the same for Robertson, that's probably the same for a number of players. It's not the case for Trent. It's not the case for Szoboszlai. It's not the case for McAllister, all these guys. I've got another video on McAllister coming. Incredible summer that he's had and incredible achievements that he's had. I really want to talk about him. We're now going to gear up after the Euros and after the Copa America on all these videos. Let me know what you'd love to see. There is a Discord in the link down below. And there is also, obviously, Patreon if you want to contribute to that. I'm thinking about starting membership up for this channel. It means that you might get videos a little bit earlier. It means we can start some chats, those kind of things. Let me know what you think about that. I'd love to see you guys there. And of course, I'd love to be able to have some deeper chats in terms of, can we do some live streams, those kind of things. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll chat to you guys in a little while. Much love.